Hi, I'm Richard Dattner, the architect for P.S.234 in Tribeca. A school now opened for a little over 20 years, which has become a much loved and much appreciated part of the lower Manhattan community, and in fact, I believe has helped the development and extension of that community by making Tribeca more kid-friendly and encouraging young families to live here. The interesting thing about PS234 is that it was one of the first of a generation of new schools to be built in New York City. It was originally planned as an adjunct to a huge office building that American Express wanted to build on the site. That project ultimately did not happen, but the Public Development Corporation asked the community to select an architect for the school, and we were fortunate enough to be selected by a group of parents and teachers. Because of its historic location, this is a part of Manhattan that actually was in the river years ago and is on landfill. But this was part of a market place section of Manhattan. It was called the Butter and Eggs District, and a district of largely masonry loft buildings and heavy warehouse structures serving the river and riverfront traffic. So we designed a school in a sense that had a 19th century wrapper of brick, of arches, arched windows, and at the point where the river once was, the corner turret, which becomes in a sense allegorically a kind of either a lighthouse or what it is in fact is a bell tower where kids are invited. Every morning a different kid is selected to ring the school bell in this bell tower lighthouse, which is a magical sound to be heard in an urban environment. The school itself was designed as a teaching tool. The exterior enclosing wall is a lesson in traditional masonry construction, and the kids can see from their classrooms and from outside how brick is fashioned into a wall, how openings are made by arching bricks over a void. Within this exterior enclosure is a somewhat more modern school, also masonry, but with horizontal openings and somewhat evocative of the WPA, the Works Progress Administration era, where so many of our public structures were constructed during the Depression, perhaps the last Depression. Hopefully we won't be in a new one. Much of our civic infrastructure was constructed as a way to keep architects, engineers, and contractors busy, and many buildings in this kind of aesthetic, horizontal strip windows, masonry exteriors, curved walls. Many of these buildings were built around the United States. So in a sense, it's a building within a building. It's scaled to kids, and it speaks to kids perhaps in a different way than to adults. The kids enter through a series of experiences. First they come to an arch, an entrance arch, which basically is a signal that they're leaving the ordinary city behind and entering a somewhat special precinct. They come into an enclosed courtyard, which is paved. It's an urban courtyard, but it's surrounded by a wonderful decorative fence designed by the artist Donna Dennis. And the fence, like the school, is a teaching lesson. It teaches about the history of the New York City waterfront. There are silhouettes of tugboats, of clipper ships, of tenders, all the kinds of boats that once made New York one of the leading marine terminals in the world. Once the kids come into this space to enter the school, then they go through yet another experience. They come through a small round turret as in a castle, and then finally come into the school. So they've come through an allegorical path, entering into a more and more special children's scaled space, and then finally inside they have the experience of a school scaled to them, and with big windows like traditional schools had in New York, still a favorite of parents, teachers, and kids. The entrance is also interesting because there's a place for parents to hang out, and the idea is that when parents come and drop their kids off, instead of leaving immediately, they can sit on park benches inside this entrance and be involved with the school, see what their kids are doing. The kindergartens are all on the ground level, so a parent could even sit on a bench while their child goes down the hall, and if the kid gets nervous the first couple of days, they can come back and see that daddy or mommy or both still sitting there watching out for them. So the school originally built, there were vacant sites around it. Now, of course, they're completely built up with high-rise residential and office buildings. And because even when we designed the school over 20 years ago, we knew that there would be large buildings around it, we did something fairly unusual in architecture, in New York at least. We oriented the courtyard to the north rather than to the south. We knew the south would be in shadow, and directly north of this school is Washington Park, a lovely landscaped area which we knew would always be there. So our courtyard faces north, but it faces across Chambers Street to the park. And the courtyard and the park really make one cohesive open space around which much of the development here is organized.